It is Tuesday, August 25th. This is the Christian Commute. I am your host, Seth Dunn, and you're riding home with me. And this is the most expensive episode of the Christian Commute in a while, because I'm driving my F-150. My wife took my Kia. I don't know if I told you guys, but my wife got a new job a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. And now she works in Kennesaw. And it's one of these jobs you may remember from before COVID where you actually have to leave your house and go to it every day. So she's working in a doctor's office and she has to go there every day. So she was getting tired of the gas expense on her minivan. So she has commandeered my little Kia Soul and made it her own. And I said, why don't you just drive my Kia? Put miles on it. It ain't worth anything. So I'm in my F-150 today. Did I have a car that got better gas mileage than this? Yes. My minivan. But I didn't want to drive my minivan today because this car is so much nicer. Also, I'm going to take over her minivan. I knew I'd get that minivan one day. Her minivan is so much nicer than mine. But I can't find my key to her van. It's a little fob somewhere. And I don't know where I put it. So once I found that key, aha, I just found it. Look at this. It was in the truck. Now I found it. I know what I'm driving. Guys, I don't think I've ever done an episode of Christian Commute in my wife's minivan. And I think that's something like Studio G, if I get to do it. So, something to look forward to for Friday's show is brand new Christian Commute car. And that automobile has adaptive cruise control. You can just set it to however fast you want to go, gently lay your hand on the wheel, and it will drive you home. It'll keep a speed. It'll slow down if somebody in front of you slows down. It'll do the lane keep assist. So it might be the smoothest episode of the Christian Commute. Or I might just drive this gas guzzling truck again. I have a full show for you today. I had a full show for you Thursday, but Thursday was very harried for me. I had a meeting with some people at church on Thursday, and I was late to that because I had a meeting at work on Thursday, and because usually I come Friday. Well, now I'm worried that I didn't come to work on Friday. I was worried that I'm about to give the same show twice, but I'm not. I actually made these show notes and kept them in the car, but I just had so much going on that I was unable to do the show. Friday I didn't go to work. Because I didn't physically go to work because I had a bunch of stuff to do for work. But anyway, this was the show you were supposed to get last Thursday or Friday. You're going to get it today. It's a full show. I have a question in the inbox about the value or appropriateness of certain types of church music. I hope I answer the question or understand the question right. I could have written the questioner back and asked for clarification, but this is all I got. So I got to use it. Today's show title is Petty Little Kingdoms. Petty Little Kingdoms. We'll do a little follow-up on the G3 aftermath. And as always, we have the Bible chapter review. We're going to be in Luke chapter 14, verses 16 through 24. But remember, this is the first show of the week. So this is where I plug the Y Project. The Y Project. Do you have in your town a seeker-sensitive Ayatollah of rock and rolla, coffee bar, goat church in the purple haze? Or do you have a church in your town or churches in your town who were not that way, but then a seeker-sensitive Ayatollah of rock and rolla, coffee bar, goat church in the purple haze moved in, and it started growing? So the church that was in your town wasn't that way, is trying to be that way. Almost trying to compete. Is that what's going on? All right. The Y Project is dedicated to telling people or asking people, Why are you going to these TED Talk, show up for entertainment type churches? And so far we have whyelevation.com, whynorthpoint.org, whyrockbridge.com, and whycrosspoint.com. And again, we're not telling people don't go to church. That's the opposite. Okay? Because here's what we know. We here at the Why Project, which is, you ever seen that movie Charlie Wilson's War, and Tom Hanks asks Philip Seymour Hoffman who's working on it, and he says, it's me and 3 other guys. Here's what we know at the Why Project, me and the other guy who does the website, okay? That these churches, the people who attend them, and it's hard to say the people who make them up, because some of them, that their idea of church membership is merely nominal. But there's a lot of people who go there who just honestly and legitimately believe in the Lord. They understand the gospel. They're trying to do the right thing. Okay? It's nothing against those people. It's there to help those people. And these websites exist to have a good attitude, like one with kinship with people, okay? So you don't want to seem combative. By the way, this I would like you to apply this to everything. Like when you're trying to witness to somebody in a cult, like Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or something like that, you are engaged in spiritual warfare. Period. For 100% sure, because those are demonic religions. They have a false gospel. And everybody in them who believes the doctrines of those organizations is in a cult. And there might be this tendency to be combative because you feel like you're in spiritual warfare, but at the same time you're trying to be loving, you're trying to be, dare I say, winsome while being combative. The Why Project is a little different in that these places aren't cults. The people there aren't necessarily wicked. Listen, there's wicked people in every kind of church everywhere. You know, the Bible talks about the tares among the wheat. That's out there, all right? But this is not telling people that they're wicked or there's something wrong with them. It's almost like, hey, you know, take the Pepsi challenge, right? Are you sure you really like Coke? Maybe you like Pepsi's better. Now, we all know it's an objective fact that Coke is better than Pepsi, but I'm just using that as an example. We're trying to get people to think through things, and we're trying to, especially push men as heads of the household who've sort of silently come to the conclusion, like, this is not the right place. You know, this is a lot of feminized worship, for example. This is maybe not good for my kids. We need to move like, hey, we're just expressing out loud what you're thinking. Let us help you along with that decision. And that's what the Why Project is out there doing. We're not trying to say anybody's in a cult or anybody's going to hell, this, that, or the other. We're trying to be out there and be good-natured. So I was contacted, it was either last week or a week ago, about somebody who was thinking about starting a Why Project thing. And what I want to encourage that person to do is, like, if you think this church legitimately, I don't want to say is deserving, but calls for one, make sure the people, especially in your town, who know you mean well. Okay? People got to know you mean well. Because if you're critical and people don't know you mean well, they're just going to resent you. But if you're critical and people think you're mean well, you know what? Even though they may still think you're wrong. Well, you're wrong, but I understand that you mean well, so I'm not going to resent you for it and let it affect other areas of our lives that we share in a community. Because there are people in my community who go to one of these Why Project churches, and they know I'm critical of it, and we still maintain relationships and cooperation in other ways because I think they mean well as church members, and they think I mean well as some wingnut with a website, right? Now, who do I think doesn't mean well? Oh, well, the church growth consultants who work at these places and the people at the very top, like your Josh Howertons of the world. I don't think they mean well for a minute, okay? But we're dealing with and we're concerned with just regular people, all right? And I like to think that most people mean well. And you guys might not think that I'm so optimistic, but I think most people mean well. And when you get into church as a business and you start looking at the bottom line and you get into the parachurch and you get into conferences and stuff like that, that's when I get more skeptical of people, even those people who seem to have right theology. If you guys ever watch the Keith Foskey videos, he always has the caricature of the Presbyterian in the bow tie and the sweater, smoking a cigar, saying superior theology. He's basically the Jeff Foxworthy of church jokes. You might be a redneck but yeah, they have superior theology. Well, that's good, but when it gets all into the selling conferences and books and tickets, I start to get suspect. And we're going to touch on that a little bit if I get to the show topic of petty little kingdoms. But all that interlude to say, don't forget to support the Why Project, because what you're ultimately trying to do is support people who are your friends and neighbors, especially the children in those places. All right, now let's go to the Bible chapter review, what's really important. Listen, the rest of this show can fade away and burn up. Guys, the Lord's going to come back one day, right? And roll up the earth like a scroll. And all the books we've written and audio files and video files we keep in all the data centers that people are building now, they're going to be gone. But the word of the Lord endures forever, all right? It doesn't return to him void. It cuts like a two-edged sword between bone and marrow. There's nothing more enduring that he's given to us than his word, okay? So if there's anything that's worth enduring as times change and people forget the current events that we're talking about, it's the part of this podcast that is the Bible chapter review, that is going over God's word, okay? So let's get to that. Luke chapter 14, verses 16 through 24. Jesus is still at this dinner party, okay? He's been tested. And he's sort of tested the other people and proved them wanting and made himself look wise, as was the concern with the guy he healed of dropsy. Then he's given the people the warning, or he's told the people about who you should be inviting to these parties. Invite people who can't pay you back. And somebody says, blessed is the one who eats the bread of the kingdom. And Jesus is going to play off that to give a stern warning to the very people who are at this dinner party, the very people who are there fighting for the positions of honor, there arguably for the wrong reasons. Important people in that town or that society, but totally wrong-headed about it, right? But Jesus said to him being the guy who said, blessed is he who eats in the kingdom, or who has the bread of the kingdom. A man was giving a big dinner, and he invited many. And at the dinner hour, he sent his slave to say to those who had been invited, come, for everything is ready now. But they all alike began to make excuses. The first one said to him, I have bought a piece of land, and I need you to go out and look at it. Please consider me excused. Another one said, I bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm going out to try them out. I'm going to go try them out. Please consider me excused. Another one said, I've married a wife, and for that reason I cannot come. And the slave came back and reported this to his master. Then the head of the household became angry and said to his slave, go out at once into the streets and lanes of the city and bring here the poor and crippled and blind and lame. And the slave said, Master, what you have commanded has been done, and still there is room. And the master said to the slave, Go out into the highways and the hedges, and compel them to come in, so that my house may be filled. For I tell you, none of those who are invited shall taste of my dinner. Who is Jesus talking to in this parable? All right. The people at that parable who are the invited guests, they are supposed to associate themselves with the people who've been invited and won't taste of the dinner. They're the unbelieving Jews, or the Jews who don't accept the Messiah. Jesus came to his own, and his own have rejected him. That's what's going on here. So here's the Messiah at this dinner party. And instead of rejoicing that he's there, they test him with this guy that they want him to heal on the Sabbath. So that the man can be healed? No, so that they can have some complaint against Jesus. And then instead of giving him the seat of honor, they fight for the seat of honor. Jesus tells them a parable and explains it. He who humbles himself will be exalted. The proud will be brought low. He explains it to them. And still their pride remains. And Jesus just flat out said, it's you guys, you've got the invitation, but you haven't responded. You're not going to eat in the kingdom. All the people that you think aren't fit. So who's not fit? It's going to be the people, you could say the sinners and the Gentiles, but the people, the sinners and the Gentiles, in as much as they accept Christ, the coming Messiah. You see, the people, you got to get this through your heads. If you have such pride that you think you're worth being invited to the party, it ain't a dinner party if I'm not there. Think about how celebrities think. Here's a great example. When they have these celebrity reality shows where celebrities learn to dance, and celebrities have a dance contest, or celebrities try to lose weight, or Celebrity Survivor, or Celebrity Big Brother. Do you ever see Tom Cruise and Matt Damon on the celebrity dance contest? No, because they're out there making blockbuster movies and they're in high demand. Who goes on the celebrity dance contest show? Corey Feldman and Carlton Banks, who, by the way, the Alfonso Ribeiro is a fantastic dancer. But B-list, minor celebrities, washed up people. All right, VH1's trying to get, what's the guy from Poison? Bret Michaels. They're having a dating show like The Bachelor for Bret Michaels. Okay, that's because Bret Michaels is washed up. When Poison was a super popular band in the 80s, Bret Michaels didn't have to go on VH1 to find a girlfriend. The girlfriends found him. What's his face? Who's the guy who sings Mr. Electric Blue? He ain't going on there. I forget his name. I wanted to say Forrest Frank, but I think that's a Christian singer. Oh my gosh, what's that guy's name? I'm 44. I shouldn't know it. Mr. Electric Blue. Whatever that guy's name is, the guy with the mustache who always has his shirt off. You ain't finding him on there. People at the top of their game, right? And that's how they think. These PR people in Hollywood, or we got to have the best parties with the best people, and it's no different from how it was there. You have all these guys at the leader of the Pharisees' house that say, I am in the room, and the room is better because I'm in it. Lord knows we wouldn't invite the lame and the blind. They don't make the room better. Nobody's going to go to a party because they are there. It's like when you're invited to a dinner party, it's rude to ask, well, who all's coming? Like, I've invited you, and you're asking who all's coming? So what happens in this parable? The people who don't come, they insult the host. I want you to understand that in the context, it's not like the host decided that day to have a dinner party and sent his servant to say, hey, we're having dinner at the house, come on over. The idea is that this is planned out. The host is going to great expense to have this party. So if you're going to get married and not go because you got a new wife, don't RSVP. If you want to go look at some land, like survey some land you bought, I don't know, maybe to make sure like how you're going to plan it or what the best way to work it is, don't RSVP. If you've bought some new oxen and you want to go try them out, see how they drive, don't RSVP. And by the way, these are lame excuses. I mean, you don't buy land sight unseen or buy oxen without trying them out first. I mean, you test drive a car. So it's not just that these are excuses, it's that they're lame excuses, okay? And they've insulted the host because they've committed to come to this big dinner, and the guy has sent his slave to say, all right, now it's time. So now this slave has gone to the trouble of going all the way to their house and finding them, because they didn't have email back then. They'd send somebody personally. It's time to go. He sent an envoy to them. Do you understand that God the Father sent an envoy in John the Baptist, and envoys in all the prophets, and ultimately an envoy in his Son Jesus Christ, and the people are rejecting him? So the host of the banquet in the parable is God the Father, just so you know. And these Jews at the real banquet, not the parable banquet, the real banquet that Jesus is at, they think they'll, lucky God, he's got us. We're the chosen ones. No, you've rejected the invitation, and your spot is going to be given to somebody else. And remember, that slave, he goes out into the city to find people, and then he goes outside the city to the highways and hedges to find people that are not even a member of the community, right? They're not townspeople who would know the host. Arguably, you can't invite everybody to your house, right, when you're having a party. You go out and invite people to this party. You say, hey, we have room at this party. Do you want to come to this feast? Oh, man, I ain't doing nothing better. Yeah, but I know that guy. I'm in town with him. I know him from around town. But then you go out to the highways and the hedges. You want me to come to some stranger's house? And, well, who's this now having a party? Those are the people who are replacing the people who have rejected the invitation. If you're so haughty in spirit, you reject the invitation of God. And that's what's happening here. These people are rejecting God the Father and all their sinful pride. And they're doing it in the parable, but they're doing it right then at the actual party where they're at. The Son of God is right there. And they don't appreciate it. What's our takeaway? Let's be humble. Let's identify ourselves properly as the poor and the lame and the crippled who've been brought in to replace the haughty people and fill the house of God. That's who we are. God doesn't need us, we need Him. We didn't bring anything special to the table. It's grace, God's grace. All right, let's move on to the question in the inbox. This question comes from James in San Antonio. And basically his question is this: consider a song that's a popular old song that would have been sort of accepted into our cultural canon. Those aren't his words, those are mine. He says, he gives the example, the old rugged cross. All right. People really don't have a question of singing a song like that in church, but I think he's implying it's not exactly theologically rich or in-depth. Somebody might argue otherwise. And he says, how do you compare that to a modern Christian song that's theologically correct, but maybe it's a Christian rock song, all right? So you have a song, it's not a hymn, but it's a popular Christian song and it's theologically correct, is that okay for church just because it's not old, like an old rugged cross? How do you deal with that? He's asking the question. And I'm not a musician. Probably a better question for David Morrill or somebody who's good at music. But the way I would approach it, James, is like this. Worship is participative in that it's corporate worship. So you think what happens when you go to church? You all bow your heads and pray. Yes, somebody at the front's praying out loud, but the idea is he's praying for you. You're all praying together, okay? There's a sermon, only one guy's preaching it, but y'all are listening. And that's part of worship. You're listening to the sermon from God's Word. They're going to pass the plate. You're giving. You're worshiping through giving. You're worshiping through just being there, because you could be anywhere else. But you've set apart that time and to be with God in that place with those people. Right? It's participative. Okay? But then you get to singing. And I think the idea is that if there's a song that you can participate in by singing it, that's a good worship song. It belongs. If it's one that you just sit and listen to, well, hold on, I just sat and listened to the sermon. Here's the difference. Because we might find, there's special music too. Are you sitting and listening to the song to be entertained and enjoy the performance of the song, and it's just a song you like? Or is the song edifying you either through the performance and the message being communicated through the song, or you're just able to sing it too? And we all know everybody knows the old rugged cross. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. Now, by the way, we don't really know that the cross was old and rugged. It could have been the first time they ever used that cross. So there's artistic license in that song, yes. All right. But we also know, theologically speaking, what is it, Corinthians, that talks about the cross being a stumbling block to the Jews and the foolishness to the Gentiles? The emblem of suffering and shame. All right? Jesus was afflicted, right? A man of sorrows. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross. Hold on, I forgot the words. For the dearest and blessed, for a world of lost sinners was slain. Well, that's true. On the old rugged cross, the dearest and blessed, that being Jesus, was slain for whom? A world of lost sinners. For God so loved the world. Now, there's probably somebody out there taking limited atonement and election arguments. I don't think the song is talking about that. But yeah, that's true. For a world of lost sinners was slain, so I'll cherish the old rugged cross, till my trophies at last I lay down. That's in the Bible. You're casting your crowns before the Lord. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. Pick up your cross and follow me, Jesus said. We identify with the cross and the shame of that cross here, knowing that in heaven, we're a nation of kings and priests. I mean, there's actually, theologically, I think that song could be pretty robust. It sounds like so many songs, we get the idea like, oh, it's about me. I feel this way. And then this song is about me. But it's saying what you're going to do. I'm going to cherish the old rugged cross. Well, shouldn't you cherish Jesus? It's saying you're identifying with Christ. That's what we do in baptism. But yeah, the cross means like we accept the scorn of the world like Jesus did on the cross. And we look forward to heaven and exchanging the shame for the crown. I'm not going to go through every verse of Old Rugged Cross, but That's one we can all sing, right? I think that song is like set for congregational singing. I don't think that's really out of anybody's range. But songs produced from the radio are usually not produced for regular people like you and me to sing. All right? Let's think of Mariah Carey. All right? People like to listen to Mariah Carey in the radio. Let's pretend Mariah Carey put out Christian albums. Could we sing her songs in church? Like, you got me feeling emotions deeper than I've ever dreamed of. You got me feeling emotions higher than the heavens above. All right. By the way, when I was a kid, I loved to listen to Mariah Carey. And when I was a kid, I could hit the notes, but then my voice changed. Regular people can't sing Mariah Carey songs. Do you understand that? Like, we can't hit those notes. But I love the way I feel inside. We can't do that. We can't hit that. All right? It's like when you go to the opera. Nobody goes to the opera and sings along because nobody can hit those notes. We can't hit that. All right? You got to be Pavarotti. Okay? There's a song, Baby Can I Hold You Tonight by Tracy Chapman. There's a version of that where Pavarotti sings it. So it's Tracy Chapman, Baby Can I Hold You Tonight. And then all of a sudden Pavarotti comes in singing in Italian. And it's like, whoa. Whoa. That's Pavarotti, all right? We can't do that. So, James, why I think those songs made for the radio, while they may be theologically valid, they might have good theology behind them, we can't really participate in them because they're a production for professionals. Okay? And when church comes about a production for professionals, all of a sudden you're an observer and not a fellow worshiper. And I think that's where you start trying to draw the line. Because you can get the Gaithers or Alan Jackson or whoever the best country singer is up there to sing Old Rugged Cross, and we can sing right along with them. All right? Hold on, a little sad. Dolly Parton died today. What a great Tennessean. Okay, talking about you. She sang some hymns in her day. I'm sorry. I'm serious. I saw Dolly Parton died. I was in a meeting. I was like, I don't know if I should stay at work the rest of the day. This is a great Tennessean. Anyway, I'm rabbit trailing. So the question the people playing in the music need to ask is can the people participate in this? And if they're not participating in it, then it's what we call the special. Are they able to sit there and absorb the theology? Is it like singing a sermon to them? Or is it like giving them an interesting and entertaining speech? Because like when you go to a stand-up comedy show, you don't go there to be edified by the speech. You go there to be entertained by what's being said. So when it becomes entertainment, I think that's the problem. Let me give you, this is good timing. So Sunday before last at church, the guy who leads our worship, I mean, you could call him our music ministry. He's not on the website or anything. He's the husband of the woman who plays the piano. Okay? And him and his wife were on vacation. And the backup piano player is the sister of the piano player, and they were on vacation with him. So nobody was there to play the piano, and the guy who does the music was there. I've never actually seen him play an instrument, but I think he knows how. I don't. And the pastor came up to me and said, "Can you lead the music today?" I was like, "What is this? The who to the what now?" He's like, "Yeah, nobody's here to do it, and we're doing it a cappella. Have at it." I'm like, "All right, then, I will have at it. Whatever you ask, man, I'll try." So the service is about to start, and I look at the worship bulletin, and it's got songs on it, and I look at the songs, and they're theologically good songs, but they're also songs that I can't lead without the piano. If somebody's not there to play the piano for me, I can't direct them, because you know how the music leader, he waves his hand up there with the notes for the singers to follow along. Like, you got to know what those notes and timing changes are to be able to do that. So I look at these songs, I'm like, someone could lead these. And I could be led by this person leading these songs, but I can't lead these. So I started flipping through the hymnal, and I went up there and I said, all right, we're going to sing Are You Washed in the Blood of the Lamb? Why? Because I know how that song goes. Have you been to Jesus for the cleansing power? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you fully trusting in His grace this hour? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Lay aside the garments that are stained with sin and be washed in the blood of the Lamb. There's a fountain flowing. So you see that? I just know it, right? So I said, hey, can we switch this? We're going to switch songs to these, because I know how the tempo is supposed to go. I just know in my heart. But I can't lead that from the chart. There's just no way I can do it. And probably when the music minister picked the songs that were in the bulletin, they probably related somewhat to the sermon that was being preached that day. But this is like, I can't do these. I'm not rejecting them as good songs. They're good songs. We'll sing them later, and I'll sing them, but I'm not the guy to lead this. So, in a perfect world, nobody ever asked me to lead music, because I can't play an instrument. I can't do anything, okay? But what I'm trying to get at is, can everybody participate in this? Is everybody able to sing it, or do you become a passive observer? And I think whatever the genre of the song, rock or contemporary or whatever, when people are releasing these Christian records, they're releasing them to be listened to on the radio or on iTunes. They're not releasing them to be sung by the average pew sitter. And I think that's sort of the problem we have with worship music in modern times, I'd say, James, is 100 years ago when people were writing hymns, they were writing hymns for every man to sing. Every man, every woman, and every child. But when now people are writing Christian songs, they're writing them to be performed by a praise team of professionals. And by the way, when you have a church with big money and big production, like a North Point or a Cross Point, their people are going to sound like pros and it's going to be good. And then when you have a church of, 30 people in a warehouse and some guy on a keyboard, it's, they sound like a bad cover band. And what's that do? Just pushes more people to the slick production place. All right, let's talk about petty little kingdoms. Let's say 5 years ago. 5 years ago, probably everybody who listens to this show would, if you'd have said, hey, there's people coming to G3. There's a G3 conference. They're having this. Oh, we'd all said, oh, what a bunch of solid people. Oh, what a solid ministry G3 is. What do we know now? What a bunch of petty self-kingdom builders they were. So I did a podcast last week about how the anonymous attack of Tom Buck for supposed sermon plagiarism. All right, the anonymous letters first sent to his church, then his church didn't fire him or anything. They're like, well, he shouldn't have done this. We'll do better. And then when they weren't satisfied, when they didn't get enough blood out of that tournament, blood out of the turnip, when they didn't get their pound of flesh from Tom Buck and First Baptist Lindale, They sent this dossier of this accusing Tom Buck of plagiarism to others, such as Protestia, hoping that they would expose him. Now, I want you guys to really consider something important here. The guys who were running G3 were elders at Praise Mill Baptist Church, which is like 200 years old. So you got to understand, when you have one of these parachurch ministries, somewhere it's localized or somewhere it's legitimized by a local church. So think of the most popular one we know, Grace to You, right? John MacArthur's preaching ministry on the radio. Well, how is that legitimized? Because he's a pastor preaching sermons at a church. That's what they're putting on the radio. He's not just some dude out there preaching in a studio. These are actual sermons. He's an actual pastor in an actual church. That legitimizes, just like Master's College. Well, what legitimizes Master's College? Well, it's tied to that church, okay? So G3 was always legitimized by being tied to a local church. Praise the Lord. So Sunday night, and the audio of this is out there. Sunday night, during the Sunday evening church service at Praise Mill, I don't know which elder it was, got up there in the pulpit and said to the people, we want y'all to be prepared for this. Where our church is going to get mentioned, and we're going to get mentioned. There's a gossip blog out there who's going to write an article about us. And so they're warning them about what this gossip blog is going to write. Well, the quote-unquote gossip blog was Protestia, and the story was the anonymous people behind the attack on Tom Buck were none other than the elders at Praise Mill Baptist Church. Not the people, but some of the elders. They all knew about it. And not only that, these same guys are running G3. And it was some personal vendetta, right or wrong, that they had against Tom Buck. And come to find out, it was mailed from Texas. I want you guys to understand that somebody went to the trouble to have this thing mailed from Texas, which is really far away from Georgia, to make it look like it came from Texas and not Georgia, which is going to a lot of trouble, which is sad. And you know what? It's petty. It's petty. So the Praise Mill congregation was warned by their elders, this gossip blog is going to write about us. What they failed to mention to them was the gossip blog, quote unquote gossip blog, has the negative information about Tom Buck because we sent it to the gossip blog. Fast forward, all four of those elders resigned. G3 is in shambles. They sent an email out today that said they're shutting down their church network, and they're going to stop the membership payments of everybody who pays to be a part of their church network. And G3 was supposed to be like what? God and glory. There was 3 G's, God, glory. I forget the rest of them. But it might have been God, gold, and glory. Whenever people are talking about doing stuff for God and glory, I think you always need to ask them, well, what about the gold? And like I said earlier, I tend to give people the benefit of not even the benefit of the doubt. I don't doubt that people mean well in church world. Usually I think people serving in church mean well. They're trying to do the right thing. Somewhere out there's some parking lot guy at Cross Point who's like, I'm getting up early, I'm trying to serve people and serve the Lord. And he finds joy in doing that. All right. Well, you're parking cars for people so they can go hear some TED talk from, some slickster. But okay, you mean well. Who do I start suspecting when they don't mean well? All the people trying to make $1 million off this. And I think what you're going to find is that when people start trying to either build a church for themselves or build a parachurch thing for themselves. They're not doing it for God. They're doing it for themselves, and it's their kingdom, and it's a petty little kingdom. The G3 people, they have their own very popular blog. They just could have published what they didn't like about Tom themselves and said, he used to be on our board and we found that he's doing this and, we repudiate this. They didn't have to try to get him fired anonymously. That was, number one, it was petty, and number two, it was a calculated move to protect their reputations. They didn't want anybody to attack them. People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. When somebody does something anonymously, what they're doing is like, I am trying to hurt these people or negatively affect these people in some way without it brushing back on me. The Bible says all who desire to live a godly life in Christ Jesus will suffer persecution. If you're standing against something wrong in the name of Christ, for the sake of Christ and His church, it's going to come back on you, and you should just bear that. Humbly, I was about to say bear it with pride, but humbly bear that because you're doing it for the sake of Christ. But if you're being anonymous and you're going after somebody, you're probably worried about your bottom line in your pocketbook, and that's petty. I really don't think anybody would have thought that like the G3 people, the people running it, were just petty backbiters, using the local church as their own jumping off point for their conference industry. We wouldn't have thought that. Why? Because their theology is sound. Guys, it ain't all about theology. That's a big part of it. Anybody can just say right theology. I'm going to put it this way too. If somebody like Kenneth Copeland identifies a market for bad theology, he can espouse bad theology and make money in that market, whether he believes it or not. If somebody identifies a market, like the niche market of Reformed Baptists and Presbyterians and their Doug Foskey cigars, all right? If they identify that market, they can espouse that theology and get speakers and writers to come preach it and sell books about it and make money off of it, whether they really believe it or not. It's easy to see when people with wrong theology, because we know the theology is unbiblical and wrong, so we naturally think they're bad. You must be doing it for money or because you're the devil. It's not so easy to see the people with the right theology who do it. But when you get the sense they're trying to make money off this, they're trying to build a kingdom off this, they're probably doing it for money, and they're probably going to be petty little people. I remember when G3 brought in Virgil Walker to be their church relations director. Now, what did that mean? He was an account manager. It was his job to get the churches to join the network and send their monthly or yearly fee in to be members. He was their networking guy. All right. When they hired a networking guy, that's when I was like, that's something's off here. And nothing against Virgil. That's what if you look at his LinkedIn, that's just what he does for a job: sales and relationship management, account management, and he's good at it. All right. And he'll probably be one of the first ones to repudiate the things they've done. He left G3 when the Josh Bice thing happened. But I'm just trying to tell you guys, I'm trying to warn you guys, don't let a veneer of seeming biblical fidelity trick you into thinking that the people behind it aren't just as petty and sinful as everybody else. I was talking to my friend the other day, and we were talking about things like this. And he's a self-funded missionary. He has to raise his own money to do ministry to youth. And he was talking about the various ways he asks for money and, how much money he needs to make a living on, and anything beyond that goes to books and food for the kids or whatever. And I think he does a very good job with what he does, might I say. And we got to talking about my podcast and other podcasts and these things and people asking for money. I said, how much money do you think I make off this podcast on my Patreon and everything? And I said, sometimes people do give me donations for the Y Project here and there. But as far as regular income, how much money do you think I make? And he said, or $500. I said, $7. He goes, oh, $700. I said, no, $7. That's my Patreon per month. It's $7. And I told him, I said, I intentionally don't ask for money. And I'll tell you guys this all the time. Why am I not after you guys to fund my Patreon? And send me this, send me that. Because I'm not trying to build my own little kingdom. This is my own daily personal devotion through the Bible that I do that I think can edify others. So I do the Bible chapter review. I think I'm pretty good at answering questions about theology and apologetics. So you guys can send them to me and I'll try to answer so it'll help you guys witnessing in your own life, like as you work through your own faith and evangelize others. Okay? And then the show title, I'm pretty aware of these things that happen out in Christendom from being a blogger and just kind of having my ear to the ground. So I'll talk about that, but man, it's the least important thing. And what I'm absolutely not trying to do is build a kingdom. Jesus said, I will build my church. He did not say, I'm going to build your parachurch. Am I condemning all things parachurch? No, a lot of good things have happened, will happen, and have happened through parachurch stuff, okay? And I'm not saying this kingdom building can't happen in churches. If you have mega churches where things are split into age groups and there's a pastor of this age, and then there's a pastor of education, and under them are any number of care group leaders who have a Sunday school class. I'll give you the example at Woodstock. When I was at First Baptist Woodstock, our Sunday school teacher was named Dwight Hicks, and it was like 20s and 30s people, right? That married couples in their 20s and 30s. And Dwight and his wife were older, okay? But within that Sunday school group, which would have been Dwight's to look after, and over him is some age group minister, I think his name was Wes or something. Under Dwight were care group leaders, because it's such a big church, you know, we'd break up into little groups before the lesson to do our prayer requests. And like those are the people like in your care group, like when you get sick or you have a baby, somebody's going to bring you a pizza. That's that, right? When I went to the hospital, my care group leader came to visit me because Lord knows Johnny Hunt wasn't going to do it. You can have people who try to make that care group their kingdom. You can have people who try to make that Sunday school thing their little kingdom. That can happen at a big church, and there's no parachurch in it. And you can have a small church where people are trying to make it that's their little kingdom and that's their thing of influence. And you got to especially watch out for this at small church, because I think a lot of people come to small churches thinking that they can be a big fish in a small pond. My church is very small, as you guys know, smaller than that Dwight Hicks Sunday school class. Now, come to think of it, we had a guy show up at our church once, and I think he'd been there maybe 2 weeks. And I heard him talking to the pastor. He says, I got this lesson I'd like to teach on Wednesday night. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, you've been here 2 weeks. Why do you think you're going to teach on our Wednesday night? And I'm also thinking there's no way the pastor's going to let him do this. He's been here 2 weeks. Like, what's he thinking? And of course, the pastor didn't. But people are going to try and get in there to these small churches and set up whatever little thing of influence they can get. I being at a really small church, it's like, we're so small, I don't know anybody would come in here and try to get that. You know what I mean? Like, congratulations, you've influenced the 4 people that had to endure Seth Dunn being the music leader that day. Like, congratulations. But no matter if it's 4 or 40 or 400 or 4,000, we've got to consider as Christians that these are all God's people. And if God has entrusted us with the care of someone, you could be a pastor in the care of a soul, or you could be a parent in the care of your child. That's a huge responsibility, but it's ultimately not our kingdom. And when we got to step away from being petty little people, okay? Because if you're petty, it's about you and not about God and His kingdom. So let G3 be a lesson for the petty little things that are out there. And I'm telling you, they're all over the place. Be on the lookout for them and be careful that you don't become petty yourself. Thanks for listening to the Christian Commute. Lord willing, I'll be back with you again, Friday. As always, God bless, and as always, remember, Christianity is not about getting saved. It's about being saved.